Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by doing something a little different. I want to ask you to just pause for a second.
Wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you are right now. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're at the gym, or just sitting at home. Just stop for a moment and look around.
Take a good look at the empty space.
Exactly. Look at the air between you and the wall. Look at the space between your eyes and your phone. It looks like nothing, right? It just looks empty. Dead air.
But it's not.
It's not at all. The reality is that empty space is absolutely teeming with traffic. I mean, it is a rush hour of invisible forces.
It's practically a solid wall of data if you knew how to look at it, if you could see it.
That's the thing that always blows my mind. We are swimming in an invisible ocean. Right now, literally passing through your body, through your bones, through your brain. There are radio waves, Wi-Fi signals, cellular data.
GPS satellite pings, light waves from every direction, sound waves.
And it is like the Matrix, but it's not science fiction. It's just physics.
It is physics, but, it borders on magic sometimes. If you could somehow switch your eyes to see the full electromagnetic spectrum, you wouldn't be able to see across the room.
Really?
It'd be a blinding fog of information. You'd see the text message your neighbor just sent literally flying past your head. You'd see the music streaming to your earbuds actually vibrating in the air.
And the craziest part is, we don't feel a thing. We are completely numb to this storm until a little device, a phone, a radio reaches out and just grabs a piece of it.
And that is really the miracle of the modern world, isn't it? We have somehow learned to tame this invisible ocean. We figured out how to encode our voices, our passwords, our secrets.
The love letters, even this very conversation right now.
We put all of that onto these little ripples of energy and send them bouncing all around the globe.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to try to decode the matrix. We're going to pull back the curtain on reality just a little bit.
I like that.
We have a huge stack of notes here. We've got physics papers, we've got biological studies on sensory perception, and a lot of historical records of those 19th and 20th century inventors.
And the story they tell is incredible. It starts with, these very strict physical laws, things like amplitude, frequency, biology.
It all feels like magic, but you're saying it's just a set of rules.
Very strict rules.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with, I think, the most fundamental question.
Okay.
I'm speaking into a microphone right now.
Okay.
That's a sound wave. It's a mechanical pressure wave. I get that. But if I'm texting my friend who's in, say, Tokyo, how do I actually get a hello or a picture of my cat onto a continuous, invisible wave of energy?
This is the absolute core concept of all communication physics. It is a single word. Modulation.
Modulation. Okay, we hear that word all the time. Modem is modulator to modulator.
Yeah.
But what does it actually mean?
Think of it this way. A wave in its natural state, just imagine a perfect sine wave, like a smooth ripple rolling across the ocean is. Well, it's boring.
It's just repeating itself.
It's just repeating. It carries no information. It's just pure energy moving from point A to point B. To make it carry a message, you have to disturb it. You have to change it. You have to vary its physical properties in a systematic way that a receiver on the other end can understand.
Okay, so it's like, if I'm holding a flashlight and I just leave it on, pointing it at you from across a field, not really saying anything, I'm just shining light.
Exactly. That's a carrier wave. It's just energy. But what if you start flickering it?
Then I'm signaling. Long flash, short flash, Morse code.
You are modulating the beam. You are imposing intelligence onto the raw energy. Now, in the world of physics and radio, we don't just have an on-off switch. We have three main levers. Three properties of a wave that we can mess with to encode our data.
And the first one is probably the most intuitive one, right? Amplitude.
Right. Amplitude. That is simply the height of the wave. You can think of it as the power or the intensity.
Or volume.
Or volume. Yeah, volume is a great way to think about it.
And this is where AM radio comes from. Amplitude modulation.
Exactly. AM radio is really the grandfather of all wireless technology, and here's how it works, in a nutshell. The radio station takes the sound of the announcer's voice, that fluctuating audio signal, and they use that signal to govern the power of the transmitter.
So when the announcer shouts, the carrier wave actually gets taller.
In a simplified sense, yes. When the audio signal is loud, the transmitted radio wave has a high amplitude. When the audio signal is quiet, the wave shrinks. The shape of the volume, the envelope of the sound, is literally imprinted onto the height of the radio wave.
It's a direct copy. It feels like the brute force method. I speak loud, wave gets big.
It is. It's very direct. And we actually still use this principle in digital technology today. It's not just for old-timey talk radio.
But in the digital world, we aren't sending a continuous voice. We're just sending ones and zeros, binary.
Right.
So how do you shout a zero?
You don't. The simplest form of this in digital is called OK.
Okay. Oh, that sounds like a caveman noise.
It stands for on-off keying. It's very literal, just like it sounds. A high amplitude, a strong, tall wave represents a 1. A low amplitude, or no wave at all, represents a 0.
So it's basically just Morse code, but with energy levels. High, high, low, sending out ones and zeros.
Precisely. It is the most fundamental form of digital language. But, as you can probably imagine, relying only on the volume or the height of a wave has some really serious drawbacks.
I can guess. I remember driving in my grandfather's old car, listening to an AM radio station, and every single time we went under a bridge or there was a thunderstorm nearby.
Crackle, pop, static.
Yeah, the signal would just get destroyed.
That is the Achilles heel of amplitude modulation. The world is a very noisy place, electromagnetically speaking. Lightning, power lines, even the spark plugs in your car's engine. They all create random bursts of electromagnetic energy.
And those bursts just look like loud waves to the receiver.
Exactly. The radio receiver gets confused. It has no way to tell the difference between the announcer shouting and a lightning strike happening 2 miles away. They both just look like a big spike in amplitude, so the signal gets corrupted very, very easily.
Right, static. Okay, so that's a huge problem. How do we fix that? We have to move to the second lever,
The second lever is frequency.
which is measured in hertz.
Measured in hertz, yes. And this, of course, gives us FM radio.
Frequency modulation.
Right. And with frequency modulation, we do something much more clever. We never change the height of the wave. The power is constant. The wave is always at full volume, so to speak.
So it's always shouting. How do we put the data on it then?
We change the pitch, we squish the waves closer together, or we stretch them farther apart.
So the number of cycles per second changes?
Yes. We change the frequency of the wave to carry the information. So if I have a high note in the music I'm transmitting from the radio station, the carrier wave gets squished, and it vibrates faster, a higher frequency.
And a low note in the music stretches it out, makes it a lower frequency.
Correct. And in the digital world, we call this FSK frequency shift keying. It's the same idea. We just assign one specific frequency to represent a binary 1 and a slightly different, say, lower frequency to represent a 0.
And the transmitter just toggles between those two frequencies back and forth very quickly.
Billions of times a second. And this one change explains exactly why FM sounds so much better, so much clearer than AM.
It's all about avoiding the noise.
It explains everything. Because think about that lightning strike again. The lightning creates a massive burst of power, a huge spike in amplitude.
Right.
But the FM receiver isn't even looking at amplitude. It's completely ignoring the height of the wave. It is only counting the cycles per second. It's only listening for the pitch.
So the static, the noise, is completely invisible to it.
Exactly. The rhythm or the melody of the wave remains intact even if the volume gets all messy and corrupted by outside noise. That is why FM offers such higher fidelity for music.
That makes total sense. It's like, if I'm listening for a change in pitch in a song, I don't really care if someone is randomly turning the volume knob up and down a little bit. I can still hear the melody just fine.
That's a perfect analogy. So we have amplitude, which is height, and we have frequency, which is, cycles per second or speed.
But looking at our notes here, there is a third one, and this is the one that always trips people up. Phase.
Ah, phase. This is definitely the advanced class.
It feels like it.
Hmm.
What exactly is phase in this context? It's not as intuitive as height or speed.
Phase is let's call it the sophisticated sibling of the other two. To understand phase, you have to imagine a wave not as a line going up and down, but like a clock face.
A clock face. Okay, I'm with you.
A full cycle of a wave is 360 degrees. It starts at, say, 3 o'clock on the clock face. It goes up to 12 o'clock, which is the peak.
Down to 6 o'clock, the trough.
And back to 3 to complete the circle. That's one full cycle.
Yeah.
Now, phase modulation, or PM, encodes data by shifting where the wave starts its cycle. Imagine you have two runners on a circular track. They are running at the exact same speed, so they have the same frequency. But one runner starts 5 meters behind the other.
They're out of phase.
Exactly, they're out of sync. Now, imagine you are the receiver, and you're watching this wave come in. It's flowing perfectly normally up, down, up, down. Suddenly, the wave jumps. It cuts its cycle short and instantly restarts from a new position on that clock face.
It creates a little glitch in the pattern.
A jagged discontinuity. It's a sudden, jarring shift. So if I'm the receiver, my only job is to look for that sudden glitch in the rhythm.
I'm not looking at height, I'm not looking at the speed of the cycles, just for a hiccup.
Yes. In digital systems, we call this PSK phase shift keying. For example, a wave is flowing along normally, and that could represent a stream of Zelleri's. Suddenly, the wave shifts 180 degrees. It literally flips itself upside down in an instant. The receiver detects that flip and reads it as a 1.
That seems unbelievably precise.
Yeah.
You're talking about waves that are moving at the speed of light,
Mm-mm.
and we're detecting a tiny shift in their timing, their starting point.
It requires incredibly synchronized clocks on both the transmitter and the receiver end. It's a huge engineering challenge. But here is where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
This is the secret sauce of the modern internet. This is the key insight for why your Wi-Fi is so incredibly fast today compared to, say, 10 years ago.
I'm listening. I need to know this.
It's called QAM.
QAM, Quadrature Amplitude Modulation. That sounds like something straight out of Star Trek.
It is the workhorse of modern Wi-Fi, of 5G, of everything. The engineers behind it had a brilliant realization. They figured if we only modulate amplitude, we are limited. If we only modulate phase, we are also limited.
But what if you did both?
What if you did both at the same time?
Oh, wow. So we are changing the height of the wave A and D, shifting its timing simultaneously in one go.
Exactly. Imagine a target board, like in archery. You have distance from the center, that's your amplitude. A wave with a low amplitude is close to the bullseye. A high amplitude is on the outer ring.
Okay.
And you also have the angle around the center, that's your phase. Maybe 0 degrees is to the right, 90 degrees is straight up, and so on.
So you're not just aiming for a ring, you're aiming for a specific point on the target.
Precisely. By combining these, we can target hundreds of specific points on that grid. Instead of just sending a yes or no, a simple 0 or 1 per wave cycle, we can send a much more complex symbol.
So a specific height combined with a specific phase shift might mean 1101. And another combination right next to it could mean 0011.
Correct. We are packing 4 or 6 or even 8 or 10 bits of data into a single pulse of the wave. It's an exponential increase in data density.
That is wild. We aren't just sending Morse code anymore. It's like we're sending complex musical chords.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We are conducting a symphony of amplitude and phase shifts millions and millions of times a second, just so you can load a meme on Instagram.
It really puts that little loading bar into perspective. I mean, we are essentially doing these incredible acrobatic stunts with energy waves just to get our data.
And, we should mention, as we often do, that nature did this first. We are just copying biology.
Right. Because sound and light, the things we evolved to perceive, operate on these same exact principles.
Sound is a mechanical wave. The pressure variations in the air are what our eardrums are decoding. Amplitude becomes the volume. Frequency becomes the pitch or the tone.
And light.
Light is an electromagnetic wave, just like radio. Our eyes have photoreceptors, the rods and cones, that interpret frequency, or more accurately wavelength, as color. A higher frequency wave hits your retina, and your brain says, that's violet. A lower frequency wave hits, and your brain says, that's red.
So we're just walking, talking biological receivers.
Exactly, which is the perfect transition.
It is. It brings us perfectly to the next section. We've talked about the signal, the wave itself. Now let's talk about the receiver, the human body.
And the surprisingly rigid hierarchy of our human senses.
Yeah, I think most people, myself included, assume that all our senses are kind of equal partners. We have the classic 5 senses. They all chip in. It's a nice democracy of perception. But the research shows that is not true at all.
It is absolutely not a democracy. It is a dictatorship, and the dictator is vision.
The numbers in our notes are just staggering. It says that approximately 80% of all the information we perceive from our environment enters through our eyes. That seems disproportionately high.
It is. It's overwhelming. We are, at our core, visual creatures, and you can see this in our anatomy. If you look at the brain, a massive portion of the cerebral cortex, the entire occipital lobe in the back, plus large associative areas in the parietal and temporal lobes, is dedicated solely to processing images.
So it's the biggest department in the company by far.
By far. It's the whole top floor.
Why is it so lopsided, though? Why did evolution put all of its chips on vision?
Think about survival on the savannah, where we evolved. You need to evaluate distances to jump across a stream. You need to recognize the face of a friend versus an enemy from 100 yards away. You need to spot the twitch of a predator's ear in the tall grass.
These are all primarily visual spatial tasks.
Exactly. Navigating three-dimensional space. Even today, our most critical decisions are driven by vision. We see if food looks safe to eat before we ever smell or taste it. We read body language, facial expressions before someone even speaks a word. We just trust what we see more than what we hear.
Seeing is believing.
It's wired into us.
But hearing isn't a slouch either.
Yeah.
It's obviously incredibly important. Where does that rank in the hierarchy?
Hearing is firmly in second place, a very important vice president. But its primary role is different. If vision is for understanding the physical environment, hearing is for understanding the social environment.
The social environment.
Vision handles the where and the what. Hearing handles communication, language, music, the tone of someone's voice, their emotion, and critically, alarms.
That's a good point. You can hear a scream from behind you. You can't see it. Vision is very directional. You have to be looking at something. But hearing is 360 degrees. It's omnidirectional.
Right. It's our early warning system. And here's a fascinating developmental fact from the biological studies. Hearing is the first sense to fully develop in the womb.
The first. Before sight.
Long before. Around 20 weeks of gestation, a fetus can hear and react to sounds. The visual system is still under construction. It's floating in total darkness. But the auditory system is online and learning.
That's amazing. So before we are even born, before we take our first breath, we are listening to the world. We're tuning in.
We are absolutely tuning in. Now, below vision and hearing, we have the most ancient of the senses, the primitive sentinel, touch.
The primitive sentinel. I like that. It sounds like a character in a movie.
It's the most primitive sense from an evolutionary standpoint. I mean, even single-celled organisms, amoebas, they react to touch. And it's unique because it is the only sense that is distributed over the entire body.
That's true. You hear with your ears, you see with your eyes, but you feel with everything.
It's the boundary of the self, the line between me and not me. And it's absolutely essential for survival. Pain, temperature. If you couldn't feel heat, you just leave your hand on a hot stove.
And it's also for emotional development, right?
Crucial for it. Physical contact, hugging. That tactile interaction is wired so deep into our primate biology. It regulates our nervous system.
And what about smell and taste? In this hierarchy, they always seem to get the short end of the stick. They feel a bit like the bonus features of the human body.
And in humans, that's largely true. Compared to a dog or a bear, our chemical senses, our ability to process smell and taste, are incredibly weak. They're not dominant for navigation or survival in the way they are for other animals. However,
There's always a however.
smell has a secret weapon, a superpower.
And that is the Proustian connection from the author Marcel Proust.
Yes, exactly. Have you ever smelled a specific brand of sunscreen? Or maybe the smell of a damp basement or freshly cut grass? And you are instantly, powerfully transported back to a specific moment from your childhood.
Instantly. And it's visceral. It's not just, oh, I remember that. It's like, I can actually feel the emotions of being there.
That's the superpower. And it's because of our brain's anatomy. The olfactory bulb, which processes smell, has a direct, unfiltered hotline to the limbic system in the brain, specifically the amygdala and the hippocampus.
Which are the emotional and memory centers.
Exactly. Sight and sound, all that information has to go through the thalamus first. It's like the brain's main switchboard before it gets routed to the right places for processing. Smell bypasses the switchboard. It goes straight to the feeling center.
Wow. So a photograph might remind you of a family vacation, but the smell of the ocean can make you feel the vacation.
It's an emotional time machine. It's incredibly powerful.
Now, we're talking about this hierarchy site at number 1, hearing at number 2. But the source material points out something really important, which is that this isn't fixed for everyone. The brain is plastic.
Sensory plasticity, yeah. The brain is an incredible efficiency machine. It will not let valuable processing power go to waste. If you lose your sight, the brain doesn't just let the massive visual cortex sit empty and gather dust.
It reallocates the real estate.
It does. It completely rezones the neighborhood. People with visual impairments often develop superior auditory and tactile acuity, better hearing, a more sensitive sense of touch, because the brain physically redistributes those resources.
The neurons get new jobs.
The part of the brain that used to process light starts processing sound waves or pressure on the fingertips.
And it's not just for sensory loss, right? The notes mention musicians.
Yes. A professional musician's brain is literally wired differently. They rely so critically on hearing that their auditory cortex might be larger, more developed, or more densely interconnected than yours or mine. The hierarchy adapts to how you use it. A surgeon might develop an incredibly refined sense of touch in their fingertips.
So, okay, We have the waves carrying the data QAM, FM, AM. We have the receiver, our eyes, and our ears. But there's a catch, right? A big one. Sometimes the waves lie to us.
They do, or rather, they get bent out of shape.
We're talking about refraction. This is a huge part of the physics notes we have, and I think it's the explanation for most of the glitches or illusions we see in reality.
Refraction is, simply put, the bending of a wave when it passes from one medium to another.
Like light going from the air into a glass of water. We've all seen the classic broken straw trick. You put a straw in a glass of water and you look at it from the side, and it looks like it's been snapped in half right at the surface of the water.
Exactly. But the question is, why does it look broken? It all comes down to speed. Light travels at different speeds in different materials.
The cosmic speed limit is in a vacuum.
Right. In a vacuum, it's the speed of light as fast as anything can go. But in water, it slows down significantly by about 25%. In glass, it slows down even more.
Okay, I get that it slows down, but why does slowing down make it turn? If I slow down my car, I don't automatically swerve to the left.
This is the key part. Let's use an analogy. Imagine a marching band.
Okay.
They are marching in a wide line, side by side, perfectly synchronized, and they're walking on a nice paved road. Everyone is marching at the same fast speed.
Got it.
Suddenly, the line of marchers hits a big patch of thick mud, but they hit it at an angle.
Okay, so the person on the far right of the line hits the mud first, while the person on the left is still on the pavement.
Exactly. The person on the right steps into the mud and instantly slows way down because it's hard to walk. But the person on the far left is still on the pavement, marching along at full speed. What happens to the line?
The whole line pivots. It swings around the slow person.
The line swings around. That is refraction. The wave front. The line of marchers bends because one side of the wave slowed down before the other side did.
And this only happens if you hit the mud at an angle.
An absolutely critical point. If the marching band hits the mud perfectly straight on perpendicularly, everyone slows down at the exact same moment. The rows might get a little closer together, but the overall direction of march does not change.
The source material mentions Snell's law. I don't want to get too bogged down in the formula itself, but essentially it's the math that predicts exactly how much the marching band will turn.
Snell's law is the recipe for the bending. It uses a number called the index of refraction. A vacuum is 1, water is about 1.33, glass is around 1.5. The higher the number, the muddier the field is for light, the slower the light travels, and the more sharply it will bend when it enters.
And this simple principle leads to some absolutely incredible real-world magic tricks. We mentioned the spoon, but let's talk about rainbows.
Rainbows are pure, beautiful refraction. A single raindrop acts as a tiny spherical prism. Sunlight, which is white light, enters the drop and it bends.
Okay.
Then it reflects off the inside back of the drop, and then it refracts again as it leaves the drop and goes back into the air. But here's the trick. Different colors of light bend by slightly different amounts.
Why? Is it because different colors have different frequencies?
Yes. Red light bends a little less, and violet light bends a little more. So the raindrop takes the white light and spreads it out into a fan of color spectrum. Millions and millions of drops all doing this together create the beautiful arc of a rainbow that we see.
It's just geometry and water. That is beautiful. But there's a darker, more deceptive side to these illusions too. Mirages.
Oh, the classic desert mirage, or even just driving on a hot highway in the summer. In the distance, you see what looks exactly like a puddle of water on the road. You swear it's water. You can even see the shimmering reflection of the car in front of you in it.
Yeah, and then you get there and it's completely bone dry.
So what is your brain actually seeing?
I have no idea.
You are seeing the sky.
I'm seeing the sky on the ground. How is that possible?
Think about the layers of air. The black asphalt absorbs a ton of heat from the sun, so the air just a few inches above the road is superheated, and it becomes less dense. The air higher up, say a few feet up, is cooler and denser.
So the light is passing through layers of air with different densities, different refractive indices.
Correct. Light from the blue sky comes down towards the road. As it gets close to the hot asphalt, it hits that hot, low-density air, and it actually speeds up and bends. It bends so much that it curves back up into your eye.
So the light ray is literally making a U-turn just above the road.
Yes. So your eye receives blue light that is coming from the direction of the ground. Your brain, which is hardwired to assume that light travels in straight lines, works backward and concludes there must be something blue on the ground.
And the only blue shimmering thing we ever see on the ground is water.
Exactly. It's a hallucination caused by physics. You are literally seeing a refracted image of the sky that has been plastered onto the road surface.
That has completely blown my mind. Okay, one more. The sunset. This one in the notes, it actually unsettled me a little bit when I first read it.
This is one of my all-time favorites. When you watch the sun dip below the horizon, when you see that last tiny sliver of orange finally disappear, it's actually already gone.
Wait, what do you mean it's already gone?
Geometrically, if you could draw a perfectly straight line from your eye to the sun has already physically set. It is below the physical horizon, but the Earth's atmosphere is thick, and it acts like a giant lens. It refracts the light of the sun, bending it down and around the curve of the Earth.
So we can still see the image of the sun for a few minutes after it is physically dropped out of sight.
We are seeing a ghost sun, a refracted afterimage. It's the atmosphere's way of letting us hold on to the day for just a little bit longer.
That is deeply weird and also kind of poetic. And it really, really drives home the point that what we see isn't always exactly what is there. It's an interpretation.
It is information that has been modulated, transmitted, refracted through a medium, and then finally decoded by our brains.
Which is a perfect segue. So we understand the waves, how we modulate them with QAM and so on. We understand the receiver, the eye, and the brain and their hierarchy. And we understand the medium, how air and water can bend the signal.
Right.
But none of this modern world, the radio, the Wi-Fi, our ability to even understand these invisible forces, none of it would exist without the handful of people who figured it all out.
The pioneers of connection.
We have 4 key names in our notes here: Maxwell, Hertz, Tesla, and Marconi. And when you read their stories, it really does read like a relay race. Each one handed the baton to the next.
It absolutely is. And it has to start with the prophet, James Clerk Maxwell.
Prophet. That's a strong title. Why do we call him that?
Because he saw it all in his head with mathematics before any of it was real. You have to put yourself in the mid-19th century. At the time, electricity and magnetism were seen as two completely separate kind of weird forces. They were parlor tricks.
Right.
Maxwell came along, and in 1865, he wrote a paper called A Dynamical Theory of the Electromagnetic Field.
And what did he say in it?
He unified them. He produced a set of 4 beautiful, elegant equations, we call them Maxwell's equations now, that showed electricity and magnetism are just 2 sides of the same coin, an electromagnetic force. And then he dropped the bombshell.
Which was?
Using his own equations, he predicted mathematically that light itself must be an electromagnetic wave.
He figured out what light was just by doing the math on a piece of paper.
Yes. He calculated the speed of this theoretical electromagnetic wave from his equations, and he looked at the number and said, wait a minute, this number matches the experimentally measured speed of light. It had to be the same thing.
That's genius.
And he went even further. He predicted that there must be other waves, invisible ones, that travel at the speed of light but just have different frequencies, different wavelengths. He literally drew the map for the entire invisible ocean we talked about at the beginning.
But he never saw them, did he? He passed away before anyone actually found them.
Sadly, yes. He died in 1879, far too young. The map was there, a treasure map, but no one had built the ship to go find the treasure. That brings us to the next person in the relay, the prover, Heinrich Hertz.
Hertz, as in the unit of frequency, hertz.
The very same. In 1887, nearly 20 years after Maxwell's theory, Hertz set up this brilliant experiment in his lab in Germany. He used something called a spark gap. Basically, he created a big, high-voltage spark that jumped between 2 metal balls in one corner of the room.
And what happened?
He had a receiver, just a simple loop of wire with a tiny gap in it, sitting all the way across the room. There were no wires connecting them at all. But when the big spark jumped in the transmitter, an invisible wave traveled through the air and caused a tiny microscopic spark to jump across the gap in the receiver loop.
Wireless transfer of energy.
He did it! He proved Maxwell was right. He showed that these invisible electromagnetic waves could travel through empty space, and he went on to show that they could be reflected and refracted just like light. He discovered radio waves.
Did he know he just changed the world? Did he see the potential?
Ironically, no. And this is the tragic comedy of pure science sometimes. When a student asked him about the importance of his discovery, Hertz famously said, "It's of no use whatsoever. This is just an experiment that proves Maestro Maxwell was right."
Of no use whatsoever. And now, literally, the entire global economy, our entire social fabric, runs on the waves that he discovered.
That is the nature of fundamental research. Sometimes you just don't see the application. That's where the engineers come in. And this is where the race gets competitive. Tesla and Marconi.
The great rivals. This is where the drama really kicks in, isn't it?
The goal for them was simple, at least in theory. Take Hertz's lab trick, which only worked across a single room, and turn it into a way to talk to people across cities, across oceans, across the world.
And Guglielmo Marconi is usually the one who gets the headline in the history books for this.
He is. He was a brilliant engineer and an even better businessman, and he gets the credit largely because of the Atlantic transmission.
This was in 1901.
Yes. In 1901, Marconi did something that most scientists at the time said was physically impossible. He transmitted a radio signal, just the letter S in Morse code, 3 dots from Cornwall, England, to a receiver in Newfoundland, Canada.
Why did people think it was impossible?
Because the Earth is curved. Radio waves, just like light, were known to travel in straight lines, so everyone thought the signal would just shoot straight off the horizon and fly off into space, completely missing Canada. They thought he was chasing a ghost.
But it didn't. It worked. Why?
He got lucky. He didn't know it at the time, but the Earth has a layer in its upper atmosphere called the ionosphere. It's a layer of charged particles, and it acts like a giant curved mirror for radio waves. The signal went up, bounced off the ionosphere, and came back down to his receiver.
So he proved it was possible, even if he didn't know exactly why.
Exactly. It was a brute force demonstration, but it worked. Marconi proved that global wireless communication was possible, and he won the Nobel Prize for it in 1909.
But he was not the only one in this race. We cannot forget Nikola Tesla.
No, we cannot. Tesla always seems to be the tragic, brilliant genius in these stories.
He really does.
Tesla had actually filed for and was granted patents for radio systems before Marconi even started his most famous experiments. He was experimenting with remote control, wireless lighting, and was dreaming of a world wireless system that would transmit not just information, but power to the entire globe.
So he had a much grander vision.
A much grander and perhaps more idealistic vision. While Marconi was focused on the practical application of sending Morse code, Tesla was dreaming of a completely transformed world.
And there was a massive legal battle between them, right? Over who really invented radio.
A huge one. The patent courts fought over it for decades. Tesla always felt that Marconi had used his patented designs. Marconi, on the other hand, had the business savvy, the investors, and the public relations machine. It was a huge controversy. In the end, years after Tesla died, the U.S. Supreme Court did end up restoring priority of some key radio patents to Tesla.
So it's a complicated legacy. It's not as simple as one person inventing it.
It never is. The reality is all of them, and many others we haven't mentioned, built the ladder that we are all standing on today.
So let's try to sum that up. Maxwell drew the map. He predicted the ocean.
Hertz built the first ship and proved the ocean was real.
And Marconi and Tesla were the competing captains who figured out how to sail it across the world.
That is a perfect way to put it.
So let's bring all of this back home. We've covered a lot of ground today. I mean, we started with subatomic physics, and we ended up in Victorian-era courtrooms. What is the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for us sitting here right now?
For me, the biggest thing is that we are never truly alone or disconnected. We started this deep dive talking about that invisible ocean. We learned that we encode our entire lives into these waves using complex math amplitude, frequency, phase happening in our pockets every single second.
We learned that our own bodies are these incredibly specialized receivers, hardwired to prioritize vision above all else, but also relying on hearing and touch to ground us in our reality.
And we learned that that reality isn't always what it seems, that the laws of refraction can bend the truth, creating mirages out of thin air and showing us ghost suns in the sky.
And we honored the people who made it possible for us to even have this conversation.
It just makes you look at your phone a little differently, doesn't it? It's not just a gadget. It's a receiver holding a century of physics and discovery. It's a little magic wand that Hertz and Maxwell and Tesla handed down to us.
It really does.
And it raises a final and, for me, a really provocative thought.
What's that?
Well, think about Maxwell again. He predicted the existence of waves that no one could see or feel or touch. And for 20 years, they were just a theory on paper. They were there, passing through people's bodies, bouncing off the walls of their homes, but no one knew.
Until Hertz built the machine, the receiver, specifically designed to detect them.
Exactly. So, what other waves or forces are passing through us right now? What is filling this room, carrying information or energy that we simply haven't built the right receiver for yet?
Now that is a thought to keep you up at night. Are we just, waiting for the next Heinrich Hertz to build the next spark gap for something we can't even imagine?
It's the beauty of science, isn't it? There is always more to find. The ocean is always deeper than we think.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the invisible world all around us. We'll see you next time.
I want you to stop what you're doing for just a second.
Okay.
If you're commuting, keep your eyes on the road, obviously. But if you can, just look at your hand.
Or your pocket.
Or look at the pocket where you keep your phone. We're starting right there with the device itself.
I think we have to.
We are, because think about it. That little black rectangle is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, arguably the most complex object humanity has ever produced.
Ever. I mean, we sent people to the moon with less computing power.
Right. It's a portal to all of human knowledge. It's a cinema, a bank, a map of the entire world, a radio station, all of it, wrapped in glass and metal.
And what do we do with it?
We doom scroll while waiting for our coffee. We treat it as completely mundane.
It's the great paradox of modern tech, isn't it? When everything is magic, then nothing is magic.
Yeah.
We've just normalized the miraculous to the point where we get actively annoyed if it takes, 3 seconds to load a video from a server on the other side of the planet?
Exactly. So today's deep dive it's a little different. We aren't just looking at one thing. We are going to try something, massive.
We're going to drill down through the entire stack.
The stack of modern existence. And when we say stack, we don't just mean software, right?
No, not at all. We mean the actual physical reality that makes the software possible in the first place.
We are going from the fundamental laws of physics that allow light to bounce off a mirror.
All the way up.
All the way up to the, psychological profile you're curating on social media. It's a journey from photons to profiles.
It is the invisible architecture of connection. So we're going to look at the physics of light.
Okay.
How we manage to trap that light to send messages. The incredible hardware in your pocket that actually catches those messages.
The radio with a brain.
The radio with a brain. Then the logic of the internet itself. And finally, what all of this does to us, to our digital identities.
It sounds incredibly ambitious, but I'm ready to have my mind blown. Where do you even begin with something this big?
It's going to be a fascinating ride. And the best place to start isn't with a microchip.
No.
It's with a mirror.
A mirror. Okay. Let's unpack this. We're talking about the physics of sight.
Precisely. Before we can even dream of having screens or fiber optic cables, we have to understand how we manipulate light.
And the mirror is the most basic tool for that.
It is. Now, you look in a mirror, you see yourself. You look at a white wall, you don't. Why?
I'm guessing it has to do with how shiny it is, or the material, maybe?
Shiny is just the word our brain uses for the result.
Mm-hmm.
But the physics of it,
Yeah.
it's about smoothness. At the microscopic level, yeah. It's called specular reflection. When light hits a mirror, it bounces off, but it follows a really strict rule, the law of reflection.
The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. I remember that.
That's the one. So if I throw a tennis ball at a perfectly smooth wall at a 45-degree angle,
it bounces off at 45 degrees. Light does the exact same thing.
The exact same thing. And because the mirror is so smooth, all the parallel light rays from your face bounce off in the same organized direction, and that preserves the image.
Okay, so what about the white wall then? It looks smooth to me.
To you, yeah. But under a microscope, a white wall looks like a mountain range. It's incredibly rough.
So the light hits the mountains and just goes everywhere.
Exactly. It scatters the light in every possible direction. That's called diffuse reflection. You get the light, the wall looks bright, but you lose the information. You lose the image, the photons get scrambled.
Got it. So smoothness equals information preservation. But, not all mirrors are the flat ones in a bathroom.
No, of course not. That's a plane mirror. It gives you a virtual image, same size, it is flipped left to right, but things get really interesting when we start to bend the glass.
Okay.
If you curve the mirror inward, like a bowl, that's a concave mirror.
Like the inside of a flashlight reflector. Or those makeup mirrors that, zoom way in on your pores.
Exactly. A concave mirror takes all those parallel rays of light coming in and forces them to converge at a single spot.
The focal point.
The focal point. That's why they're used in telescopes. They gather all this faint light from distant stars and concentrate it so we can actually see it. And depending on where you stand, the image can be magnified or even flipped upside down.
And then there's the opposite, the convex mirror. That's the classic, objects in mirror are closer than they appear on the side of a car.
Right. It curves outward. So instead of gathering light, it takes the light and spreads it out. It diverges it.
Which gives you a much wider field of view.
A huge field of view, which is great for safety in a car, but the trade-off is that everything looks smaller.
Yeah.
You trade size for context.
Okay, so mirrors bounce light, But lenses are different. They let light through, they transmit it.
And this is where it gets really, really important for cameras and screens and, well, everything.
Right.
They do, and they rely on a totally different phenomenon called refraction.
The bending of light.
The bending of light. When light travels from, say, air into a piece of glass or plastic, it changes speed.
It slows down. I thought the speed of light was supposed to be a constant.
It's constant in a vacuum. But in a material, it has to interact with all the atoms. It gets absorbed and re-emitted, and the net effect is that it slows down. And because it slows down, if it hits the material at an angle, it changes direction.
It bends.
It bends. This is all governed by something called Snell's law.
Is there a good way to visualize that? Because bending light still sounds a bit like magic.
Okay, yeah. Imagine a marching band. They're all marching in perfect formation on pavement, moving at a steady speed.
Got it.
Suddenly, the whole formation marches into a big pit of mud, but at an angle.
Ah, so the people who hit the mud first are going to slow down.
Exactly. The people on one side of the line hit the mud first and they slow right down, while the rest of the line is still on the pavement, moving fast. What does that do to the whole line?
It causes the entire formation to pivot, to turn.
That's refraction. The light hits the glass, it slows down, and it turns. And by carefully shaping the glass, we can control exactly how that light bends.
And just like with mirrors, we have two main types here.
We do. You have converting lenses, which are convex lenses, thicker in the middle like a magnifying glass.
Right.
They take parallel rays of light and bring them all together to a single focus point. These using cameras, microscopes, and to correct hyperopia farsightedness.
And then the opposite, the diverging lenses, concave, thinner in the middle.
Correct. They take light and spread it out. These are used to correct myopia or nearsightedness. And there's actually this really beautiful piece of math that governs all of it.
What's that?
It's called the lensmaker's equation.
The lensmaker's equation. That sounds like the title of a fantasy novel, The Secret of the Lensmaker.
It's almost as magical, I promise. It's this formula that connects the focal length of the lens to the curvature of its surfaces and the refractive index of the material.
Which is just how much the material slows down light.
Exactly. It is the math behind the magic. It allows us to design lenses with just incredible precision. Your smartphone camera, with its multiple tiny lenses, simply would not exist without this equation.
And when you put the two together, mirrors and lenses, you can build these incredible tools that let us see the universe.
You can. The Hubble Space Telescope, for example, is a catadioptric system.
Meaning?
It uses mirrors to capture the light, because you can make mirrors huge and lightweight, and then it uses a series of lenses to correct and focus that light for the sensors.
But let's not get lost in space for a second. Let's look at biology.
The human eye.
Yeah.
Your eye is a biological lens. It literally projects an inverted image onto your retina, and your brain flips it right side up. It's the original camera. But we didn't stop at just seeing things. We wanted to say things.
We wanted to use light to talk.
Exactly. Which brings us to our second stop on this roadmap, signaling with light.
And this goes back way, way further than the internet. I was actually surprised to see how ancient this idea is.
Oh, goes back to fire. Lighting a beacon on a hill to warn of an invasion.
That's binary code, isn't it?
It is. Fire on equals danger, a 1. Fire off equals safe, a 0. It's the most primitive form of digital communication imaginable.
But the sources you sent over mentioned something really cool from the 18th century. The French optical telegraph. I had never even heard of this.
It is absolutely fascinating. This was in the 1790s. This is decades before the electric telegraph was a thing.
Wow.
France built this whole network of towers, each just miles apart, all in a line, and on top of each tower were these giant, movable mechanical arms, semaphores.
So you're telling me they had literal giant wooden arms waving around on top of towers?
Yes, an operator in one tower would look through a telescope at the previous tower in the chain. He'd see a specific shape. Maybe the arms were in a T shape. He would then pull a bunch of levers to make his own tower, make that same T shape.
And the next guy down the line would see it and copy him.
Exactly. It's like a visual game of telephone.
That is wild.
They had codes for letters, numbers, common phrases. You could send a message from Paris to the border in just a matter of hours, which was, light speed compared to sending a guy on a horse. It was the internet of the Napoleonic era.
What did they do at night?
They strapped lanterns to the arms.
Of course they did. So we've been transmitting data with light for hundreds of years. But today, we're not waving mechanical arms, we're modulating the light itself.
Yeah, we've moved to much more sophisticated modulation. We can change the intensity of the light on or off, or bright and dim. We can change its frequency, which is its color, or even its polarization.
But at its core, it's still that same basic binary concept. Light on is a 1, light off is a 0.
That's it. And if you flash that light fast enough,
You get beta.
you get data. And if you use a laser, you get serious data. We use lasers for what's called free space optical communication, or FSO,
Sending data through the air.
through the air. NASA has actually done this from the moon to the Earth, sending back high-definition video.
That's incredible. But it has a major flaw, right? The weather.
The weather, fog, birds, anything that gets in the way.
Right.
Light doesn't like obstacles. Fog is just a cloud of tiny water droplets. Remember what we said about diffuse reflection?
The mountain range.
Exactly. The laser hits the fog and just scatters. Your signal is lost. So, to build a reliable global internet, we needed a way to guide the light, to trap it.
And that is the miracle of fiber optics.
That's it.
This is the backbone of the entire connected world. But most people just see a plastic cable. What's actually inside?
It really is a miracle of material science. A fiber optic cable holds these impossibly thin strands of ultra-pure glass, each one thinner than a human hair.
And we just shoot laser pulses down it.
We do. But the physics trick here, the thing that makes it all work, is something called total internal reflection.
Okay, visualize this for me. How do you trap light inside a piece of clear glass? Why doesn't it just shine out the side?
Okay, good question. Imagine you're at a lake and you're skipping a stone. If you throw the stone steeply straight down into the water,
It just sinks, plunges right in.
right, it breaks the surface. But what if you throw it at a really, really shallow angle?
It skips. It bounces off the surface tension of the water.
Light does the exact same thing inside the glass fiber. The fiber has a central core where the light travels, and it's wrapped in a different kind of glass called cladding.
Okay.
If the light pulse hits the boundary between that core and the cladding at a shallow enough angle, the boundary acts like a perfect mirror.
So it just bounces back in?
It bounces back in. It zigzags down this tube of light, trapped, traveling at nearly the speed of light for thousands of miles.
And the capacity. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. We aren't just sending one signal down that tiny thread.
Oh, no. That would be a huge waste of some very expensive glass.
Yeah.
We use a technique called WDM,
WDM.
wavelength division multiplexing.
Okay, break that down for me.
Think of the fiber as a single-lane tunnel. If you send one car down it, that's one signal. But light has different colors, right? Different wavelengths. So imagine sending a red car, a green car, and a blue car down that same tunnel at the exact same time.
They wouldn't crash.
Nope. Because they are different colors of light, they don't interfere with each other, they pass right through one another.
So you can send multiple completely separate streams of data down the same fiber just by using different colored lasers.
Precisely. We can send dozens, sometimes hundreds of different colors or channels of data simultaneously down a single strand of glass. We are talking terabits per second.
Terabits.
That's enough to download the entire Library of Congress in just a few seconds.
And this isn't just connecting, buildings in a city. This is connecting continents.
That's the part that I think people forget. They think the internet is in the air or it's in the cloud, but the cloud is actually under the ocean.
Right.
There are these massive submarine cables, thousands of miles long, just lying on the seafloor, physically linking New York to London, Tokyo to San Francisco. That physical glass connection is the internet.
It's just crazy to think about. There are ships out there right now just laying down glass on the bottom of the ocean.
And repairing it. Sharks actually used to bite the cables.
You're kidding me. Get out of here.
No, I'm serious. The cables emit a very faint electromagnetic field, and sharks have sensors in their snouts that can detect that. They thought the cables were distressed fish.
So a shark could literally slow down my Netflix stream.
We had to start shielding the cables better, but yes. A shark biting a cable could theoretically buffer your Netflix.
That is the most metal thing I think I've ever heard. But okay, so we've got the light moving across the world, but eventually it has to get to you. It has to get to that device in your hand.
And that's where the magic changes form again. Which brings us to section 3, the mobile phone.
Or as you like to call it.
The radio with a brain.
Because that's fundamentally what it is. It's just a really, really sophisticated two-way radio.
It is. It sends and receives electromagnetic waves. But not like the FM radio in your car.
What's the difference?
It's all about frequency. Your car radio listens in at around 100 megahertz. Your phone operates at much, much higher frequencies, from 700 megahertz up to 28 gigahertz, and even higher for 5G.
And higher frequency means the waves are smaller.
Smaller waves can carry more data, but the trade-off is they don't travel as far.
Which is why we need so many cell towers everywhere.
Exactly. And this brings us to the real genius of the mobile phone system, which is hidden right there in its name. Cellular.
The cells.
Right. We divide the entire world up into these geographic zones called cells, usually drawn as hexagons. And in the middle of each cell, there's a tower.
Okay.
As you drive down the highway, your phone is constantly talking to the network, measuring signal strength from all the nearby towers. It's basically shouting, "Can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now?"
And when you move away from one tower and get closer to another?
The network performs what's called a handover. And this is a seamless, beautiful technical feat. The network sees you're leaving cell A and entering cell B. It tells Tower A to let you go and Tower B to pick you up, handing off your data stream in milliseconds.
And ideally, you never even notice. Your call doesn't drop.
You never notice. But for the network to find me in the first place, it needs to know who I am.
And that's the job of the SIM card.
The little chip we all hate trying to pop out with a paper clip.
Yeah.
The subscriber identity module. It's actually a tiny computer in itself. It holds your MSI, your unique ID on the network, and a set of cryptographic keys.
So it's like a secret handshake.
It's a secret handshake that says, yes, I'm this user, and more importantly, I'm the one who pays the bills for this user.
Yeah.
It authenticates you.
And we're seeing this shift now to eSIMs.
Yeah, embedded SIMs. The chip is just soldered directly onto the phone's motherboard. You can reprogram it with software.
Which is great for traveling.
Oh, it's a lifesaver. You just download a new carrier profile instead of having to hunt for a little shop at the airport to buy a physical chip.
Thank goodness for that. Okay, but let's talk about what happens when I actually make a call. I speak into the phone, and then what? Magic.
Physics and math. Your voice is a sound wave, right?
Yeah.
The vibrating air.
Right.
The microphone in your phone turns that vibration into an electrical signal. But that signal is analog. It's a smooth, wavy line. Computers can't store wavy lines.
They need numbers, ones and zeros.
Exactly. So an analog to digital converter, an ADC, measures the height of that wave thousands of times every second and turns it into a stream of binary numbers.
But raw audio, that's a huge file. It must take up a lot of space.
It does. If we tried to send raw, uncompressed audio over the network, it would just clog up instantly. So we use compression. We use these algorithms called codecs. It's short for coder-decoder, things like AMR or Opus. And these are brilliant. They look at the data and say, okay, the human ear can't hear this super high frequency, so delete it. This long pause of silence is redundant, so let's just note how long it is and delete the actual data.
So it strips everything down to the bare minimum needed to be understood.
The bare minimum. Then we encrypt it for security, blast it out as radio waves, and the tower picks it up.
And all of that happens in milliseconds. It's incredible. And the hardware doing this, the brain of the phone.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple computer processor anymore.
No, the days of just having a CPU, a central processing unit, are long gone. Modern phones use a SSI.
A system on a chip.
A system on a chip. Think of things like Apple's A18 or the Snapdragon 8 Elite that the sources mentioned. It's like a whole city on a chip the size of your fingernail.
It's not just one thing.
No. You have the CPU for general thinking. You have the GPU for graphics. You have the modem for talking to the cell tower. You have the ISP, the image signal processor, which is a dedicated brain just for taking the raw data from your camera sensor and turning it into a beautiful photo.
And now the AI engines are on there too.
The NPU's neural processing units. These are chips designed specifically to run machine learning models right on your device without having to talk to the cloud for things like face recognition or real-time language translation.
And that's not even counting all the other sensors, accelerometers, gyroscopes, barometers.
And GPS. I mean, GPS is mind-blowing if you just stop and think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Your phone is receiving these incredibly faint, time-stamped signals from multiple satellites that are 20,000 kilometers up in space.
Orbiting the Earth.
Orbiting the Earth at thousands of miles an hour. It compares the tiny differences in the time it took for those signals to arrive from at least 4 different satellites and uses that to triangulate, technically it's trilaterate, your exact position on the surface of the Earth to within a few feet.
It's receiving a message from outer space just to tell me I missed my turn at Starbucks.
Basically, yes. The level of integration in that one little device is just staggering.
So we have the device, we have the radio connection to the tower, but what are we connecting to? We're connecting to the internet.
Which brings us to section 4, the global nervous system.
I love that description, but this is where people get confused, I think. They think the internet is a place, like, I'm going to go on the internet.
Right. But the internet isn't a place. It's a set of protocols. It's a language. It's like a treaty. It's just an agreement on how a bunch of independent networks will talk to each other.
And just like a postal system, everything needs an address. This is IP.
The Internet Protocol. Every single device that connects has an IP address. For a long time, we used a system called IPv4.
Those are the 4 sets of numbers you always see, like 192.168.1.1.
That's the one. But there was a problem.
We ran out.
We ran out. IPv4 only supports about 4.3 billion unique addresses. In the 1980s, that seemed like an infinite number. But today, between phones and laptops and watches and smart toasters, we ran out years ago.
So what did we do?
We upgraded to IPv6. It uses a much longer hexadecimal format. And the number of addresses available in IPv6 is, well, it's 340 undecillion.
Is that even a real number?
It's 34 followed by 36 zeros. It's a number so large, we could assign a unique IP address to every single atom on the surface of the Earth and still have enough left over for another planet's worth of atoms.
Well, we're not going to run out of those anytime soon.
Not in this lifetime, no.
Okay, so every device has an address. But how does the data actually travel? The sources make a really big deal out of something called packet switching. This seems to be the key innovation.
It is the fundamental difference between the internet and the old telephone network. It's the whole ball game.
Explain that difference.
Okay, in the old days of the phone system, they used circuit switching. When you made a call, a literal dedicated wire connection was established between you and the other person for the entire duration of that call.
So that line was yours?
It was yours. If you both stopped talking and just sat there in silence, that line was still open, just transmitting silence. It was incredibly inefficient. And if any point in that circuit broke, the call died.
Okay, so how does the internet do it differently?
The internet uses packet switching. Imagine I want to send you a book. Instead of putting the whole book in one big truck and sending it to you,
Right.
I tear out every single page of the book. I put each page in its own little envelope. On each one I write, to you, for me, page 1 of 100, page 2 of 100, and so on. And then I just dump all 100 envelopes into the mail system.
Individually?
Yeah.
At the same time?
Individually. One packet might go through a router in Paris, another might go through London, a third might bounce off a satellite. They each take the most efficient route available at that split second.
So they might arrive completely out of order.
All the time. You might get page 10 before you get page 2. But your computer receives them, looks at the little numbers on the envelope, and just reassembles the book in the correct order instantly.
And what about the resilience?
That's the beauty of it. Let's say the truck carrying page 42 crashes, or a router in the network goes offline. Your computer just waits a millisecond and says, hey, server, I'm missing page 42. The server then resends just that one packet. You don't have to resend the whole book.
So the network can heal itself?
It can flow around damage like water. It was designed during the Cold War with the idea that it could withstand a nuclear attack.
Yeah.
You can destroy a major hub, and the data will just find another path.
And the traffic cops directing all this water around are the routers.
Yes. Routers are the postmen of the internet. They look at the destination IP address on the packet. They look at their internal map of the network, and they say, okay, you need to go that way. And they do this millions of times a second.
Okay, let's walk through the click journey. Because we do this 100 times a day and never think about it. I'm on my laptop. I type google.com into my browser, and I hit enter. Walk me through that split-second timeline.
Okay, a lot happens, and it happens fast. First, your computer doesn't know where google.com is. Computers speak numbers, not English names. So it sends a request to a DNS server.
The domain name system. The phone book of the internet.
Exactly. It asks, what is the IP address for google.com? The DNS server looks it up and replies with the number.
Okay, now my computer has the address.
Now it knows the destination. So it sends a message to that IP address to start a connection. This is called the TCP handshake.
Transmission Control Protocol.
Right. It's very polite. Your computer sends a SYN packet that's short for synchronize. It basically means, hello, are you there? Can we talk?
And Google server replies.
Google server replies with a SYN-ACK. Yes, I hear you and I acknowledge you. Let's talk. Your computer then sends a final ACK. Okay, great, we're connected.
So it's a 3-step handshake,
Yeah.
and then...
Then you send the actual request using HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Your browser says, get me the homepage. The server finds that homepage, chops it up into thousands of little packets, the HTML code, the images, the scripts, and it fires them all back to you.
And my browser catches them, reassembles them, and draws the web page on my screen.
All of that in hopefully less than a second.
And the S you see in HTTPS.
That S is incredibly important. It stands for secure. It means the connection is using TLS encryption.
So,
So it means that while all those packets are traveling through all those wires and routers around the world, they are locked in a mathematical safe. If someone intercepts them, all they see is scrambled garbage data. They can't read your email or steal your credit card number.
It is an absolute symphony of engineering, and all of that, the physics, the light, the chips, the protocols, it all exists to deliver one thing: content.
And usually, that content is us.
And this is where we shift gears. We're leaving the hardware and the code, and we're entering sociology.
Section 5, digital identity.
This is the part that, honestly, it scares me a little, because we've built this perfect machine for transmitting information, but what we're using it for is to build these digital avatars of ourselves. We aren't just users anymore. We are, like, residents.
We are living in the network, and that requires a completely new way of thinking. And the sources highlight a really critical concept here: the digital footprint.
The idea that the internet is written in permanent ink, not pencil.
Exactly. Everything you post, every like, every comment, every photo is permanent.
Yeah.
Even if you delete it, it's probably backed up on a server somewhere or someone took a screenshot. It's a living archive of your life.
The sources suggest a pretty good rule of thumb for this: the grandmother-employer test.
It's classic for a reason. Before you hit post, just ask yourself 2 simple questions. Would I be comfortable if my grandmother saw this?
Okay.
And would I be comfortable if a future employer saw this 10 years from now? If the answer to either of those is no, just don't post it.
It sounds conservative, but I mean, people lose jobs over tweets from a decade ago. It happens all the time.
Because context shifts. What's considered a funny joke today might be deeply offensive tomorrow. Or what feels private in a small group chat might become public because of a data breach.
But there's also this question of who we are online. The sources get into the whole debate between using your real name and using a pseudonym.
And this is really important. There's a big push from some platforms for real names only. But a lot of the research argues that pseudonyms are a totally valid and necessary privacy strategy.
You don't owe the entire internet your legal government identity.
Exactly. Especially if you're discussing sensitive topics like health issues or political views in a repressive country, anonymity can be a shield.
But it can also be a weapon, which I guess we'll get to. First, let's talk about just protecting that identity: security, hygiene.
This is the part of the deep dive where we have to eat our vegetables.
We do. They're good for us.
They are. The sources list the never share items, obviously your address, phone number, passwords, but also things like your daily routine.
Hey, everyone, I go for a run on this exact trail every Tuesday at 6 a.m.
Please don't do that. And be so careful with photos. I see people all the time posting vacation time photos where they're holding up their airline boarding pass.
Oh, I see that constantly.
That barcode on your boarding pass, it contains your full legal name, your frequent flyer number, and your entire ticket record locator. Someone could just take a screenshot, scan that barcode, log into the airline's website as you, and cancel your return flight home.
Yikes. Okay, so don't dox yourself. What are the other threats?
Well, the threats are evolving. It used to be just hacking, which meant someone guessing your password. Now it's much more about grooming, phishing, and social engineering.
Social engineering is the really scary one because it's hacking the human, not the machine.
Right. It's all about generating artificial trust. It's that email that looks exactly like it's from your boss asking you to buy gift cards, or that urgent text message that looks like it's from your bank. They manipulate you into opening the door for them.
So how do we lock the door?
Strong, unique passwords.
Yeah.
And I mean unique for every single site. If you use password 123 for your email and your bank, you are just asking for trouble.
Use a password manager.
Use a password manager.
Mm-hmm.
But the single most important thing, if you only take one piece of advice from this entire deep dive, is to turn on 2FA.
Two-factor authentication.
Yes. It adds a crucial second layer of defense. It requires something you know, which is your password, and something you have, which is your phone, or a physical security key.
So even if a hacker in another country steals my password,
They still can't log in because they don't have your phone to receive that 6-digit code that just got texted to you. It's that simple.
it turns a potential disaster into a minor annoyance.
Exactly. You should turn it on for everything. Your email, your banking, all your social media, everything.
But safety isn't just about defense against hackers. It's about how we treat each other. This idea of digital citizenship.
This is the idea that the internet is a society. And just like any society, it requires norms and responsibilities. The problem is what psychologists call the online disinhibition effect.
That's the idea that because I can't see your face and I'm anonymous, I don't feel as bad about being a jerk to you.
That's it in a nutshell.
Mm.
We lose our empathy filters. And so you get cyberbullying, hate speech, defamation.
Yeah.
And these aren't just online drama. They have very real-world psychological consequences for the victims.
And that anonymity that people hide behind, it's often an illusion, isn't it?
Oh, it is. You might be posting as user 12384, but the platform knows your IP address, your device ID, and probably your location history. If you break the law online, you can be found. You are not a ghost.
But beyond the legal stuff, there's a moral duty here, the duty to verify information.
This is huge right now. We are all publishers now. If you share a news story, you are effectively publishing it to your entire network. You have a responsibility to take 5 seconds to check if it's true.
Spreading disinformation, even if you do it accidentally, is a failure of digital citizenship.
A major one. Finally, let's talk about digital well-being. Because just living inside this machine takes a real toll on our brains.
It's the emotional component of it all.
It is. We need to learn to recognize toxicity. We need to feel empowered to use the tools we have to block, to report, and most importantly, to disconnect. The sources use the word curating.
Curating your feed, like a museum curator.
Exactly. We so often feel like we're victims of the algorithm. Oh, the algorithm showed me this awful thing. But we are the ones who train the algorithm. If you engage with rage bait content, it learns that you like rage bait, and it shows you more of it.
So we have to take back control.
You are the program director of your own information intake. If an account consistently makes you feel inadequate or anxious or angry, unfollow it, mute it, change the channel. You have that power.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. We aren't just passive consumers of this stuff.
No, we have to be active guardians of our own mental health just as much as our data security.
So let's zoom all the way back out. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. We started with a single photon of light bouncing off a mirror.
Then we trapped that photon in a glass thread thinner than a hair lying on the bottom of the ocean.
We caught it with a radio antenna connected to a silicon chip that thinks faster than the Apollo guidance computer.
We chopped the information it was carrying into thousands of little packets and routed them through a global brain of interconnected machines.
And finally, we reassembled it into a profile picture on a screen that represents a human being.
It's kind of overwhelming when you see it all laid out like that. The system is so physical, so engineered, and yet the result is so deeply, deeply personal.
That's the big picture here, I think. These systems, physics, engineering, software, sociology, they aren't separate subjects you learn in school. They are just layers of the same single reality. They all work in concert to create the modern world we live in.
Which leads us to the final thought, the provocative question we want to leave everyone with.
We spent the last part of this conversation talking about curating our digital identity, the software version of us. We worry so much about how we look to the algorithm. But I want to go all the way back to where we started.
To the lens.
To the lens, to the physics of sight. We use lenses to correct our vision, to focus light, to see things more clearly. But my question is, in the digital world, are we applying that same kind of focus?
What do you mean?
We spend all this time curating what we post, what we reflect out into the world. But how often do we stop to curate the lens through which we view that world? Are we just passively reflecting whatever the algorithms show us, like a simple mirror? Or are we actively applying critical focus, like a carefully ground lens, to see what's actually true, to filter out the noise, and to create a clearer picture for ourselves?
That is something to chew on. Are you a mirror or are you a lens?
That's the question.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go check my 2FA settings on a few accounts.
Yeah, maybe look up from the screen for a minute. The real world has pretty great resolution.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you in the next layer.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are doing something a little different today.
We are.
Usually, we take a look at a specific event in history, or we break down the biography of some titan of industry. But today, we aren't looking back.
No.
We're looking directly in the mirror. We are looking at us, all of us, right now.
It really is an examination of the water we're all swimming in, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's less of a history lesson and I guess more of a status report on the human animal in the 21st century.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was reading through the stack of research we have for today, and believe me, it is a massive stack, and it just hit me.
What's that?
We are, all of us, living through a massive, real-time experiment in human interaction.
Oh, absolutely. A completely uncontrolled experiment.
Right. Think about it. We have more ways to talk to each other than any human beings in the entire history of the species. We've got text, email, Slack, Zoom, FaceTime, DMs, voice notes, disappearing photos. The list just goes on and on.
And yet, and this is the core paradox, If you look at the data and the general sentiment across almost all the sociological papers we're covering today, we often feel less understood
Yes.
and
Yeah.
significantly more exhausted than before we had all these tools that were supposed to make life easier.
That is the paradox we are tackling today. We're calling this the digital balancing act.
A good title.
We're going to unpack three specific, I'd say high-stakes questions that just kept jumping out of the research.
Okay.
First,
Oh.
what is actually the most effective way to communicate? Because, spoiler alert, the data suggests we get it wrong constantly.
And we'll look at why we get it wrong. It's not just, bad habits or laziness.
Well,
There's a fundamental mismatch between our biology, which, let's be honest, hasn't really changed in 50,000 years, and our tools, which change with every single update cycle.
that's a great point. Second, we're going to look at this idea of hyperconnectivity. Is it ruining our brains, or is it a superpower we just haven't figured out how to use yet?
A huge question.
And finally, we are going to the front lines, the real battleground of the classroom. Should kids have phones in school?
And that last one is incredibly heated. There is no easy answer there. But what I love about the sources we have today is that the mission isn't to find a single correct answer.
Right.
If you're listening for us to tell you, delete all your apps or go buy the newest gadget, you're going to be disappointed.
That's not what this is.
No. The research strongly suggests these aren't problems solved by facts alone. They are solved by values.
I love that framing. It's about what matters to you, what you prioritize. But I have to say, before we get all philosophical, I am particularly excited to get into the specific studies on Zoom fatigue.
Yes.
I read that part of the packet and had a total aha moment about why I feel like a complete zombie after 4 p.m. most days.
It's a very specific neurological mechanism, and once you understand it, it really does change how you approach your day.
I bet.
But before we can get to the fatigue, we have to start with the basics, the sort of hierarchy of how we talk.
Let's jump in. Section 1. The hierarchy of communication. The core question here seems so simple on the surface. Is there a best way to talk to someone?
Right.
Like, is a phone call objectively better than sending a text?
Well, as you can probably guess, the source material gives us that classic academic answer, which I know you sometimes find frustrating.
Oh, no, don't say it.
Depends.
Of course it does. Okay, unspool that for me. Depends on what, exactly?
It depends on a few very specific things.
Yeah.
Effectiveness isn't about the technology itself. It's about the fit.
The fit.
The fit between the message you're trying to send, the context you're in, and the relationship you have with the person you're sending it to.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's start at the very top of the food chain. All the sources describe face-to-face communication as, and this is their word, the richest medium.
Rich. That makes it sound expensive. Or maybe caloric.
Think of richness in terms of data density or
Right.
bandwidth.
Okay, data density. I like that.
When you and I are sitting here right now looking at each other, I am getting your words, obviously, but I'm also getting your tone of voice.
Right.
I'm seeing your eyebrows raise when you're skeptical. I'm seeing your posture shift when you lean in. I'm getting eye contact. It's a fire hose of data.
Right. You can tell if I'm actually listening or if I'm just waiting for my turn to talk, which I never do, of course.
Of course not. But exactly. There are all these parallel channels of information flowing at the same time.
So is there, like, science behind this?
Oh, absolutely. There are classic studies on this, specifically by a researcher named Albert Mehrabian. He did this famous work back in the 60s and 70s about the emotional impact of nonverbal elements.
Like, I've heard of this. Isn't it the one that says words are only like 7% of communication?
That's the one. And his work is, I have to say, often misquoted.
How so?
People say it means words don't matter, which isn't at all what he was saying. His study was specifically about messages involving feelings and attitudes.
Ah, okay. The emotional stuff.
Exactly. The big takeaway is that when a message is emotionally charged, a huge percentage of the weight of that message sits in the delivery, the tone of voice, the facial expression, not in the literal text of the words.
So if I say, I'm fine, but I'm grinding my teeth and looking at the floor.
The rich data, the teeth grinding, the floor staring completely overrides the words. Your brain instinctively prioritizes the visual and tonal cues over the linguistic ones because they're seen as more honest.
They're harder to fake.
Much harder. That is what makes face-to-face so rich. It's high bandwidth, high fidelity communication.
Okay, so that's the gold standard, the penthouse suite of communication. But when do we absolutely need to use it? Because, we can't fly to London for every 15-minute sync-up meeting.
That's the practical question, isn't it? The research suggests it's absolutely essential for three main things: difficult conversations, negotiations, and building empathy.
Okay, walk me through those. Difficult conversation.
Anything where there's a potential for conflict or misunderstanding. Giving critical feedback to an employee, ending a relationship, talking about a sensitive health issue.
Things with high emotional stakes.
Exactly. You need that real-time data stream. You need to be able to see the confusion on their face and correct yourself instantly. Or see the hurt and soften your tone. You can't do that with a delay.
And negotiations.
Similar idea, so much of negotiation is about reading the other person. Are they bluffing? Are they confident? Are they getting frustrated? All that information is in their body language, their eye contact. You lose all of that in an email.
You're flying blind.
Totally blind. And the last one, empathy, is maybe the most important. Empathy is about feeling with someone. It's incredibly difficult to do that without the full spectrum of human expression.
Okay, so that's the penthouse suite. It's powerful, but it's time-consuming and location-dependent. So we can't live there all the time.
No, we can't.
So we drop down a few floors to written communication, texts, emails, Slacks, the workhorses of modern life.
And this is where we fall into the trap.
What trap is that?
The sources have a great name for it. They call it the neutrality trap.
Oh, I know this trap. I live in this trap. This is when I send a text that just says sure, and my partner is convinced I'm furious for the next 3 hours.
Precisely. That is the neutrality trap in action.
So why does it happen?
Well, written communication has massive pros, right? We should acknowledge that. You can think before you respond. You can edit.
It creates a permanent record, which can be good or bad.
Right. And you can blast it out to 50 people at once without the pressure of them all staring at you. It's incredibly efficient. But the con is that it strips away all that rich emotional data we just talked about. The tone, the expression, the body language. It is what they call lean media.
So the richness is gone. We're just trading raw text, ones and zeros.
Exactly. And here's the psychological kicker. In the absence of emotional tone, human beings have a natural tendency to project.
Project what?
Their own anxieties, their own insecurities. A truly neutral message like, we need to talk or okay, is almost never read as neutral. It's often read as cold or passive-aggressive or even hostile.
Because the recipient fills in the emotional blanks with their worst fears.
That's it. It's an empty vessel for their anxiety. I've seen it happen so many times. A manager sends an email that says, "Can you see me at 4 p.m.?" and the employee spends the entire day convinced they're about to be fired.
When really the manager just wants to ask about the weekend bake sale.
Right. It's so true. I've personally spiraled over a single period at the end of a sentence. It feels so final, so abrupt. It feels like a door slamming shut.
That's the danger.
Yeah.
The sources are really clear on this. Written communication is terrible for ambiguity. If there's any chance the message could be taken the wrong way, sending a text or an email is a huge gamble.
You're essentially betting that the other person is in a good enough mood or a secure enough headspace to interpret your silence as busy rather than angry.
A bet I have lost many, many times.
We all have.
Okay, so we have face-to-face, which is rich but expensive in terms of time and energy. We have text, which is efficient but emotionally dangerous.
Wow.
So enter the pandemic.
Right.
Entered the video call. Zoom, FaceTime, Teams. This was supposed to be the savior, right? The middle ground that gave us the best of both worlds.
It is the middle ground. And it does recover some of those crucial cues. You can see the smile, you can see the nod, you can see someone's eyes glaze over when you're boring them.
A very useful piece of data.
It is. But it lacks physical presence. And it introduces its own set of very strange, very draining problems. Which brings us to that Zoom fatigue you mentioned in the intro.
Yes, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because logically, sitting in my comfortable chair at home looking at a screen shouldn't be more tiring than sitting in a stiff chair in a stuffy conference room. But it is. It absolutely is. Why?
The sources, particularly the research out of Stanford's Virtual Human Interaction Lab by a guy named Jeremy Bailenson, explain this really, really well.
Okay.
It comes down to primarily one thing: forced eye contact.
Eye contact.
Think about a normal meeting in a physical room. You look at the person who's speaking, then you might glance down at your notes. You look at the window for a second. You look at your coffee cup. Your gaze drifts around the room naturally.
Right. It's fluid. I'm not locking eyes with the person sitting across the table from me for 45 minutes straight. That would be incredibly weird.
Yeah.
And aggressive.
It would be super creepy. Exactly. But on a video call, that natural drift is broken. The social contract is different. If you look away from the camera, it looks like you're disinterested or distracted to the other participants.
You look like you're checking your email.
You do. So to show that you're paying attention, you have to stare almost constantly at a grid of faces on your screen.
And they're all staring back at you.
Right. And not just staring, but they're often at a close-up distance that, evolutionarily speaking, our brains associate with one of two things: intimacy or aggression.
Whoa. So my brain thinks I'm either about to fight or get very close with.
Yeah.
12 people from the accounting department simultaneously.
Essentially, yes. Your brain is in a state of hyperarousal because it's trying to decode dozens of facial cues from multiple people nonstop while also maintaining a fixed, direct gaze. It is a massive, cognitive heavy lift.
That's why I feel drained.
That is exactly why you feel drained. You aren't just talking, you are performing attention in a way that is profoundly unnatural for our biology.
That makes so much sense. It's a performance.
Yeah.
And then there's the mirror thing, right? The sources talked about that.
Oh, the self-view. That's the other killer. In the real world, unless you carry a mirror around, you don't see your own face when you talk.
Yeah.
But on a video call, you are constantly monitoring your own appearance. Is my hair okay? Is that a weird shadow? Do I look tired? That constant self-monitoring and self-criticism adds another whole layer of cognitive load.
It is exhausting just hearing you describe it. I feel tired just thinking about it.
It is. So you have the forced eye contact, the close-up faces, the constant self-evaluation, and also you're more physically constrained. You can't pace around the room. You're stuck in this little box. It's a recipe for burnout.
Wow. So to wrap up this whole hierarchy, the notes mention a concept called media richness theory. It's from Daft and Lengel, and they came up with it back in 1986, way before any of this.
That's right.
1986. So they were talking about, what, fax machines and memos?
Probably. Memos, phone calls, maybe the odd fax, yes. But the theory holds up incredibly well. It's almost prophetic.
So what was their theory?
They argued that all communication media can be placed on a spectrum of richness, which they defined as the capacity to process information per unit of time.
The data density thing again.
Exactly. Face-to-face is at the top, very rich. A formal, unaddressed document like a company-wide memo is at the bottom, very lean. And their rule of thumb is just brilliant in its simplicity. Match the medium to the message complexity.
Write that down for me.
If the message is complex or ambiguous, we need to restructure the entire department, or I'm unhappy with our relationship, you need a rich medium. You need face-to-face. You need that bandwidth for nuance and immediate feedback.
Okay.
If the message is simple, routine, and unambiguous, the meeting has been moved to 2 p.m. or please remember to buy milk. That works best in a poor or lean medium, like a text or a quick email.
So using a rich medium for a poor message is
Well, but
just inefficient.
it's inefficient and often intrusive. Calling a meeting of 10 people to announce a new meeting time is a waste of everyone's time. It demands too much collective attention for too little data.
But the reverse is where the real danger lies.
The reverse is far worse. Using a poor, lean medium for a rich, complex message is potentially disastrous.
The sources gave a pretty dark but effective example of this.
They did, the pragmatic argument. They mentioned the hypothetical case of a doctor delivering a grave diagnosis to a patient via text message.
Oof, just hearing that makes me cringe.
Right. Technically, from a pure engineering standpoint, it's efficient. The information was transferred. The data moved successfully from point A to point B.
But it's monstrous.
It's monstrous because effectiveness isn't just about the technology working. It's about the message actually landing. It's about the human on the other end being able to process it, emotionally and cognitively. A text for a diagnosis is emotionally disastrous because it ignores the entire human context. It offers no support structure, no empathy, no way to ask immediate questions.
So the big takeaway from this whole first section isn't never text or always meet in person.
Not at all.
It's read the room. Think before you type.
Exactly. Don't just ask, is this app good? Ask, is this the right tool for what I'm trying to achieve with this specific person in this specific moment? It's about being intentional.
Which leads us perfectly into the second big question. We have all these tools, we're using them all the time. Which begs the question, is it possible to be too connected?
This is the hyperconnectivity paradox. And honestly, looking at the volume of research, the debate here is fierce. This is not settled science by any stretch of the imagination. There are very, very smart people on both sides.
So let's start with the yes side, the argument that, yes, we are too connected and it's frying our brains. The sources cite some pretty compelling and frankly scary data here.
They do. A lot of the research they point to is the work of Jean Twenge, a psychologist who studies generational differences. She has looked extensively at the generation born after about 1995, the group she calls iGen.
The first generation to grow up with smartphones from a young age.
The very first. And the data shows a really worrying correlation, as smartphone and social media use absolutely skyrocketed. The sources pinpoint the years around 2011 to 2012 as the tipping point. So did rates of adolescent anxiety, depression, and loneliness, especially among teenage girls.
And it's not just looking at phones makes you sad, right? Because that feels a little too simplistic. It's about what the phones are replacing.
Correct. It's a concept called displacement. The argument isn't necessarily that the phone is inherently toxic, like a piece of lead.
Right.
It's that if you are spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day on a screen, that is 6, 7, or 8 hours that you are not spending doing other things.
Like sleeping.
Or exercising, or interacting with your friends face to face. And those three things, sleep, physical activity, and real-world social connection, are the absolute pillars of mental health. The phone displaces the very things that keep us sane.
But there's also the direct psychological mechanism of FOMO, the fear of missing out. The sources define this really sharply. It's a direct product of seeing everyone else's curated lives.
It is, and it's a fundamental asymmetry of information. You know your own life from the inside. You know your boredom, your anxiety, your bad hair days, the fight you had with your mom.
You know the messy reality.
The full, messy, boring reality. But you only see other people's lives from the outside, specifically the polished, filtered, perfect version they choose to publish online.
A highlight reel.
The highlight reel. So you aren't just sitting at home on a Friday night. You are sitting at home on a Friday night watching a non-stop, algorithmically curated highlight reel of everyone else having the absolute time of their lives. It's a recipe for feeling inadequate.
It makes you feel like you are failing at being a person.
That's a perfect way to put it. And then there is the direct neurological impact. It's not just feelings, it's about what's happening to the physical structure of our brains.
The sources mention some studies from Microsoft on this.
Yes, showing that our collective attention spans are physically shrinking. We're becoming less able to focus on a single task for a sustained period.
I feel this in my own life. I'll sit down to read a book, something I used to love doing for hours.
Yeah.
And 3 pages in, my hand is twitching, reaching for my phone. It's like a phantom limb.
That is your brain, which has been rewired by years of social media, seeking the next dopamine hit of a notification.
It's an addiction.
The sources describe it as an addiction to rapid, discontinuous stimulation. We are literally training our brains to be distracted. We are wiring ourselves for constant novelty, not for depth.
There was a mention in the research of Cal Newport here, too. I love his work.
Yes, the author of Digital Minimalism and Deep Work. His argument is incredibly compelling. He says that deep thought, the kind of thinking that solves complex problems, that writes symphonies, that cracks a scientific code, requires long, sustained, unbroken concentration.
He calls it flow state.
Exactly. And constant passive connectivity, where you are always half aware of your inbox, your DMs, your notifications, is fundamentally incompatible with deep work. You cannot get into a state of flow if you are being pinged every 6 minutes.
Or even if you're just expecting to be pinged. That's a key part of it, right?
That's the really insidious part. It's a concept called attention residue. The research shows that even if you just glance at your email for 10 seconds, a part of your brain stays stuck on that email for minutes after you put the phone down. So you're never fully present in the task you return to. You are effectively making yourself dumber by constantly splitting your mental processor.
And we can't ignore the privacy aspect that was mentioned in the notes.
Yeah.
Being disconnected means leaving a permanent, searchable data trail of everything you do.
It's a surveillance state that we voluntarily carry in our pockets.
Yeah.
That's the cost of admission for all these free tools. You aren't the customer, you are the product being sold to advertisers.
Okay, that all sounds absolutely terrifying. I'm ready to throw my phone in the ocean and go live in a cabin. But that's not the whole story, is it?
Not at all.
Because the sources also make a powerful argument that this connectivity is a miracle, a genuine force for good.
It is. And we have to be fair and give that side of the argument its full weight. The no side, or maybe the value side is a better term, argues that the internet has democratized access to knowledge in a way that is completely unprecedented in all of human history.
A kid in a rural village in India can, in theory, access the same library of information as a tenured professor at Harvard. That is mind-blowing when you stop to think about it.
It truly is, and it's also about community. The sources highlight how critical connectivity is for allowing marginalized groups to find each other and build solidarity.
Right.
If you are a kid struggling with your identity in a small conservative town where no one understands you, the internet isn't a distraction, it's a lifeline. It shows you you're not alone.
And it enables social movements. Things like the Arab Spring or Me Too couldn't have happened, or at least not in the same way, without this technology.
He couldn't. It allows for global collaboration and mobilization on a scale we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, it just keeps relationships alive.
Oh, for sure. I have friends who have moved to other countries that I absolutely would have lost touch with 20 years ago. Now we're in a group chat and we share memes and updates every single day.
It erases distance.
So we have these two massive, powerful, opposing truths. It destroys our attention, but it builds global communities. It fuels anxiety, but it democratizes knowledge. How on earth do we reconcile that?
This is where the synthesis in the research gets really interesting. It brings up a crucial concept: agency versus algorithms.
Agency versus algorithms.
This is the key distinction. The problem might not be the connectivity itself. The problem might be our lack of agency in how we connect.
Agency meaning control, having a choice.
Meaning, who is in charge? Are you choosing to go online with a specific purpose? To find a specific piece of information, or to talk to a specific friend, or to watch a specific video? That's agency. You are using the tool.
Yeah. I'm the pilot.
You're the pilot. Or are you being dragged into a vortex by an algorithm that has been specifically designed by some of the smartest behavioral psychologists and engineers in the world to maximize your screen time, to keep you scrolling at all costs?
That's loss of agency.
That is total loss of agency. Now the tool is using you.
The endless scroll. The doom scroll. Going on YouTube to learn how to fix a leaky faucet and ending up 2 hours later watching a video about medieval siege weapons.
That's the loss of agency in action. You didn't choose that path. The algorithm chose it for you because it knows it will hold your attention.
So the final verdict from the sources seems to be that connectivity is technically neutral, like a hammer. You can build a house with it, or you can break a window with it.
A perfect analogy. Its effect, positive or negative, depends entirely on usage, dosage, and, this is a really important point they make, whether a disconnected life exists to balance it out.
What do you mean by that?
If you have a robust, fulfilling offline life hobbies, friends, work, community, then the online world is just a supplement. It's a tool you use. But if you don't have that offline foundation, the online life can consume you. It becomes the whole world.
And that's when it gets dangerous.
That's when it gets really dangerous.
All right, so we've covered how we talk and we've covered how we live with the internet. Now let's talk about where this all begins for so many people, the classroom. This section of the research was fascinating because it feels like a real active battleground. This isn't theoretical. Schools are making these decisions every day.
It absolutely is a battleground. And the core question is, should smartphones be allowed in schools? And I think if you ask most people, they have a very strong, immediate gut reaction one way or the other.
I do.
But the research is going to surprise you. It complicates both sides of the argument.
So let's start with team, allow it, the integration argument. What is the case for letting kids keep their phones in the classroom?
The primary argument, and it's a powerful one, is real-world preparation. The proponents of this view say that we are preparing kids for a digital world. Banning phones, the argument goes, is like preparing them for a reality that no longer exists.
The world they will work and live in is saturated with this technology.
Exactly. The analogy they use is, we don't ban pens because kids might pass notes with them. We teach them how to write. We should be teaching them how to use this powerful tool responsibly.
So the schools should be the place where they learn how to use the tool, not just be shielded from it.
That's the idea. Skill building. How to evaluate sources, how to spot misinformation, how to create digital content, how to collaborate online. These are arguably 21st century survival skills. If you ban the device, you lose the opportunity to teach those skills in a controlled, guided environment.
Okay, that's a strong point. The sources also mention personalization of learning.
This is huge. The potential of adaptive apps. Imagine a typical classroom of 30 kids. In a traditional lecture, the teacher has to aim for the middle of the class.
Right. The smart kids get bored, and the kids who are struggling get left behind.
Always. But with a device, an adaptive app can adjust the difficulty of math problems, for example, for each individual student in real time. If a student is acing the questions, it gets harder. If they're struggling, it offers hints or simpler problems.
That's the dream of education, right? Truly personalized learning that meets the kid exactly where they are.
It is. And there's also the inclusion and accessibility argument.
Hmm.
For students with certain learning disabilities, that device is a critical tool.
How so?
Text-to-speech tools for students with dyslexia, Zoom functions for students with visual impairments, translation apps for students who are new language learners. For some kids, that device is the only way they can fully access the curriculum. Taking it away would actually be discriminatory in those specific cases.
Okay, that's a very compelling set of arguments. Prepare them for the real world, personalize their education, and include everyone. It sounds like a slam dunk.
It does.
But then you flip the page in the research packet to Team Bannett, and the data just hits you like a truck.
It really does. The opponents of phones in school, the restriction side, have some very strong empirical evidence on their side.
Where do we start?
They cite a major study from the London School of Economics. The researchers were Beland and Murphy back in 2015. It was a huge natural experiment.
What did they look at?
They looked at schools across several English cities before and after they implemented mobile phone bans, so they could directly compare the results. And they found that in the schools that banned the phones, student test scores went up significantly.
Okay, that's a big deal.
But here is the critical nuance. This is the part that really matters. The improvement was most significant among the lowest performing students.
Really? Not across the board?
Not across the board. The high-achieving students weren't as affected. They seemingly had the self-regulation and cognitive control to ignore the phone, or maybe they were already performing at their peak. But the students who were already struggling, the phone was a massive anchor dragging them down even further.
So the ban actually reduced the achievement gap. It reduced inequality.
That is the incredibly powerful finding. By removing the biggest source of distraction, the students who were most vulnerable to that distraction improved the most. In a way, it leveled the playing field.
That completely challenges the narrative that technology is always the great equalizer. Sometimes removing the technology is the great equalizer.
Exactly. And then there is the brain drain study. This one out of the University of Texas at Austin in 2017 is the one that really sticks with me.
Is this the one about the phone just being on the desk?
This is the one. It's so elegant. The researchers, led by Adrian Ward, had participants perform tasks that required a high degree of cognitive capacity, things that measure working memory and fluid intelligence.
Hard brain work.
Hard brain work. And they had the participants do these tasks with their phone in one of three locations: on the desk, face down, and on silent, in their pocket or their bag, or in another room entirely.
And the phone was off or on silent the whole time?
Silent or off, it never made a sound, it never vibrated, and what they found was that the mere presence of a smartphone, even if it is turned off and face down on the desk, significantly reduces a person's available cognitive capacity.
Wait, even if it's off? Even if I'm not consciously thinking about it?
Even if it's off, because a part of your brain, your subconscious, is actively working to not pick up the phone. It's actively inhibiting that impulse.
It's like having a delicious chocolate cake sitting on your desk while you're trying to do your taxes.
That is the perfect analogy. You aren't eating the cake, but your brain is spending precious energy saying, don't eat the cake, don't eat the cake, don't look at the cake. That is energy that is being stolen from your ability to focus on the tax return.
That is terrifying. It's a cognitive leak.
It is a constant, low-level cognitive leak. Your brain is unconsciously monitoring the device, waiting for a potential signal. That creates the brain drain, and the results were stark. The students whose phones were in the other room significantly outperformed the ones whose phones were on the desk.
So simply having the phone visible on the desk makes you effectively dumber in that moment.
In that moment, yes. It demonstrably reduces your available cognitive power. Now imagine that effect in a classroom for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
It's a huge handicap. And then, of course, there are the social dynamics that the research mentions. Bullying.
A huge issue. In the old days, if you got bullied at school, you could go home, and you were, for the most part, safe. Home was a sanctuary.
Right.
Now, the bullying follows you home in your pocket. It's 24/7. It's on Snapchat. It's on Instagram. There is no escape.
And the sources also bring up the value of recess.
Yes. Developmental psychologists argue that phone-free recess is an irreplaceable part of social and emotional learning. If every kid is just on their own screen during their break, they aren't learning how to read facial expressions.
Or how to share.
Or how to resolve a conflict when someone cuts you in line for the swings. They aren't learning how to be bored and then, out of that boredom, invent a game together.
And boredom is where creativity comes from, right?
It is absolutely essential for creativity. If you plug every single moment of boredom or quiet contemplation with a screen. You never have to daydream or invent a story or just let your mind wander. You atrophy those critical mental muscles.
So given all this, where's the world moving on this issue? Are we seeing more banning or more allowing?
The global trend is definitely shifting toward restriction and regulation. The sources mention France, which implemented a nationwide ban in primary and middle schools back in 2018. The UK issued guidance strongly encouraging head teachers to ban them in 2024.
And UNESCO.
Yes, UNESCO, the UN's educational and cultural organization, published a major global report in 2023 that came out strongly in favor of regulation, with the explicit line that technology must always serve learning, not the other way around.
So the pendulum is swinging back. It feels like we hit peak screen, and now we're collectively realizing the profound costs.
It certainly seems to be. But the wisest experts in the source materials suggest that the middle path is probably where the real truth lies. It's about being intentional.
Meaning it's not a simple yes or no.
It's not binary. A phone locked away in a yonder pouch or a locker for the day is a completely different thing than a phone sitting face down on a desk.
The brain drain phone.
Exactly. And a teacher saying, okay, everyone, take out your phones for the next 10 minutes. We're going to use this specific augmented reality app to explore a model of the human heart is profoundly different than a student just doom scrolling through TikTok during a history lecture.
Right. It's not phones, good or bad. It's what are we doing with them and when and why?
Exactly. It requires active management and a clear philosophy of use, not just a blanket yes or no policy.
So as we bring this all together, looking at all three of these sections, the hierarchy of communication, the hyperconnectivity paradox, and the battleground in schools, what is the common thread? What ties this all together?
If you step back and look at the whole picture, the common theme in all three areas is that we as a species are struggling to adapt our ancient biology to our very, very new technology.
Our hardware is old, but our software is updated daily.
That's a great way to think about it. In every single one of these sections, the problem arises when we let the tool dictate the behavior instead of the other way around.
We let the efficiency of a text message replace the necessary richness of a real conversation.
We let the algorithm's desire for our attention replace our own choice about where to put it.
And in schools, we sometimes let the mere presence of the screen replace the irreplaceable experience of the playground or the focused classroom.
Precisely. And the sources all converge on this one final point. These aren't just technical problems to be solved with a new app or a new setting. They are fundamentally questions of our values. They are value judgments.
We are being forced to choose what we care about more.
We are. Do we value efficiency more than we value depth? Do we value the convenience of connection more than we value the well-being that comes from being present?
And for our kids, do we value preparing them for a digital future more than we value protecting their focus and their childhood in the present?
Those are tough choices, and there's no single right answer for everyone.
They really are. And the final truth that comes out of all this research is that the most honest answer to almost any question about technology is usually, it depends.
It always depends.
But that requires critical thinking. It requires intentionality. It's so much harder to think critically than it is to just adopt a simple dogmatic rule like all tech is good or all tech is bad.
It puts the responsibility squarely back on us. We have to be the pilots of our own attention, not just passive passengers.
It really does. Being well informed on these topics isn't about knowing all the stats from all the studies. It's about understanding the trade-offs, knowing what you gain, but also what you lose with every choice you make.
That's the digital balancing act.
Well, that gives us a lot to think about. I'm definitely going to think twice before my next back-to-back block of Zoom calls. And maybe, just maybe, I'll actually put my phone in the other room when I need to focus.
A wise move.
Yeah.
The research, as we've seen, strongly supports it.
Before we sign off, we always want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We talked a lot about schools and phones, and usually the debate is framed as distraction versus learning, a simple trade-off. But here's a more provocative question derived from the material we've discussed. Perhaps the core question isn't whether children should have access to phones in school. Perhaps the real question we should be asking is this: is the school the primary place to teach them how to use technology responsibly? Or should the school be the one safe haven in their lives where they are protected from it?
Is it a training ground or is it a sanctuary?
That is the question. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
See you next time.
Stay curious.